Okay, so we're diving into something pretty wild today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit, when you sent over these sources, I was fascinated
Yeah.
by this whole gut-brain connection. It's not just about, feeling butterflies before a big presentation or uh,
Right. Yeah.
getting an upset stomach when you're stressed. It's like there's a whole conversation happening between our
Definitely.
guts and our brains, and it's affecting everything, even our mood, like how we're feeling and, you know.
It really is. And I think for a long time, we sort of
Mhm.
dismissed the gut as, oh, that's just where we digest food. But
Right? Like it's just a simple system.
right, exactly. And now
Yeah.
the research is showing us that it is so much more complex and has such a bigger impact
Yeah.
on our overall well-being than we ever could have imagined. So it is a really fascinating area.
Totally. And one of the things that really jumped out at me from the material you sent was this phrase, second brain, which I have to admit sounds a little sci-fi, right?
It does. It does sound a little sick.
It does.
But it's not that far off, actually, when
Yeah.
you really start to dig into the science of it.
Uh-huh.
It's not like we have a literal brain, sitting in our stomach.
Right. It's not like a mini me down there.
Right, exactly. No mini me.
Yep.
But what we do have is this incredible network of neurons. So neurons, those are the cells
Yeah.
that make up our nervous system. So we've got millions of these neurons in our gut, and it's called the enteric nervous system.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that this system can actually operate independently.
So it doesn't need the brain.
It doesn't need the brain's input to a certain degree. It can manage digestion, how
That makes sense. Like it can handle things on its own down there?
it can handle things on its own to a degree, but it is
Yeah.
in constant communication with the brain.
Okay, so it has some autonomy. Like it's got its own thing going on,
Exactly.
but it's still talking to the boss upstairs.
Exactly. It's like a really effective manager, right? It
Hmm.
can handle the day-to-day operations,
That's a great analogy.
but it's still reporting back
Yes.
to the CEO.
Okay, I like that. So, but how does this communication actually work?
Well, we have a couple of really important players in this communication pathway. So one is,
Like what is it? Email? Is it text?
well, think of it more like a super highway of signals
Okay.
that are constantly flowing back and forth
All right.
between the gut and the brain. So one of these major players is the vagus nerve.
Okay.
Have you heard of the vagus nerve before?
I have. I don't really know what it does, but I know it's there.
So the vagus nerve it's this long nerve that runs all the way from the brainstem
Okay.
down to the gut, and it carries messages both ways.
Okay.
So from the gut to the brain and the brain to the gut about everything that's going on.
Oh, it's like a two-way street.
It's like a two-way street.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So it's letting the brain know, hey, I'm full,
Oh,
or there's something might be off here.
Oh, that's interesting. So is that what happens like when I eat something that doesn't agree with me and I get a stomach ache? That's my vagus nerve freaking out, being
I
like,
think it could be, yeah. It could be the vagus nerve sending those signals to the brain saying,
Yeah.
hey, there's something going on here that we need to pay attention to.
and then my brain is like, abort mission, abort mission.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we need to take care of this.
Interesting. But it's not just the vagus nerve, right? Like
Right. You are absolutely right. So it's not just the vagus.
there are other players involved?
There are other players. Yeah. So another really important one
Okay.
is neurotransmitters.
And remind me what those are again.
So neurotransmitters are these chemical messengers in the brain, but what's really fascinating is that they're also produced in the gut.
Okay.
So for instance, a lot of our serotonin, which you've probably heard of,
Yeah, serotonin is the happy chemical, right?
serotonin is often referred to as the happy chemical, right? It's involved in mood regulation, sleep, appetite, all sorts of things.
Wow.
And a lot of it is actually made in the gut.
That's so wild. It's
It
like
is wild.
the things that are impacting my mood, my happiness, that's happening in my gut.
To a certain extent, yeah. And that's why this connection is so important and so fascinating, because it really highlights how interconnected our physical and mental health are.
It makes you think about those times when you're just like, I don't know why, but I just feel off.
Right.
And maybe it's, maybe it is something happening in your gut.
Maybe it is. And, we've all experienced that, like you mentioned, feeling hangry.
Oh, definitely.
Oh.
I am the queen of hangry.
Right. We get irritable. We get snappy when we haven't eaten. And for a long time, I think we just dismissed that as,
I'm just being dramatic.
right, you're just being dramatic. But
Yeah.
there's actually a biological basis for it.
So there's So it's not just me.
It is not just you.
Okay.
It's real. It's a real phenomenon. So when our blood sugar drops, that can actually trigger changes in our gut.
Okay.
And those changes can then send signals to the brain
Through that vagus nerve highway we were talking about.
through the vagus nerve highway, exactly. And those signals can then influence our mood, our behavior, make us feel
So it's like my gut is sending out an SOS being like, feed me, feed me.
exactly. Yeah, like we need fuel. We need something here.
I love that. So this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yes.
Because if what's happening in our gut can actually influence our mood,
Right.
then does that mean that if we can positively influence our gut health,
Right.
we can actually also improve our mood?
That is what a lot of research is now looking into.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. And it makes sense when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
If our gut is playing such a big role in our overall well-being,
Yeah.
then it stands to reason that taking care of our gut health
Right.
is going to have a positive impact on our mental health as well.
Absolutely. And one of the phrases that I kept seeing over and over the research that you sent
Yeah.
was this idea of feeding your microbiome.
Right.
Now, I have heard this phrase before. I'm not exactly sure what it means.
Yeah.
So what are we actually talking about when we say feed your microbiome?
So the microbiome, that is the trillions of bacteria.
Trillions. That's a lot.
Trillions. It's an amazing number
Okay.
that live in our gut.
Okay.
And they're not all the same, right?
Yep.
We have good bacteria, we have bad bacteria.
Okay.
And it's really about making sure that we're feeding the good bacteria.
Right, because we want those little guys to thrive.
We want those little guys to thrive. Exactly.
Okay, so how do we do that? What are we feeding them?
Well, they need certain types of food
Okay.
to flourish. So one of the most important things is fiber.
Okay, so fruits, vegetables.
Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all those things that we know are good for us anyway.
Right.
They contain prebiotics.
Prebiotics.
Prebiotics. And those are basically types of fiber that our bodies can't digest.
Okay.
But the good bacteria in our gut,
They love it.
they love it. Yeah, they
Right.
can break it down and use it as fuel. So by eating plenty of fiber, we're essentially throwing a feast for our gut bacteria.
I like that. Throwing a feast. So like my gut is like a little dinner party.
It is a little dinner party going on down there.
All the good bacteria are invited.
Exactly.
And then the bad bacteria, they're not on the
We're
list.
not inviting them.
Okay, so we've got prebiotics, which is like, that's their food.
Yes.
But there was also this term, probiotics.
Probiotics.
Yeah, what are those?
So probiotics are actual live bacteria,
Okay.
and we can get those through fermented foods.
Like yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha.
Exactly, yeah. All those delicious fermented foods.
Okay, and so that's actually introducing good bacteria into our system.
Exactly. It's
Right.
giving them reinforcements.
I like that. That makes sense.
Right. So you're not just feeding the ones that are already there, but you're also adding.
You're adding to the party.
You're adding to the party
Yeah.
with all these beneficial microbes.
Okay, and then these good bacteria, they're helping to crowd out the bad bacteria.
Exactly. They help to keep the balance.
Okay, so balance is important.
Balance is very important.
Yeah, because one of the sources also talked about how, sometimes when we get so focused on health,
Right.
we can lose sight of enjoying life and enjoying food.
Absolutely.
And it was this great line about not losing your appetite for fun.
Yes, I love that line.
Right, like it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
It doesn't. And I think that's really key
Yeah,
because, if we get so restrictive with our diets, if we're constantly worried about every little thing we eat,
we're not going to have fun.
we're not going to have fun. And that's going to impact our mental health as well, right?
Exactly, so it's all about balance.
It is all about balance.
Like, maybe I don't have to give up pizza night,
Right?
but maybe I make sure there's a salad on the side.
Exactly. Or you add some fermented veggies to your pizza.
That's a great idea.
Right. There are ways to enjoy the foods that we love.
Yes.
While still making choices that support our gut health.
That's such a good point. So, this has been amazing.
It's been fascinating, right?
It's really changed how I think about my gut.
Yeah.
It's not just this, this organ that's digesting food. It's like this complex
Really?
system
Yeah.
that's connected to my mood, my brain, my overall
Different.
well-being.
It really is. And it's so much more influential than we ever realized. And what's really exciting is that this research is still in its early stages. There's so much more to learn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, did you know that some research is suggesting that gut bacteria might even be able to produce their own neurotransmitters? Like actually create those chemical messengers that then influence the brain.
That's mind-blowing.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
right? So it's like we're just beginning to scratch the surface
Yeah?
of understanding this connection.
I love that we're just scratching the surface because it makes it so much more exciting.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to discover. And I think the takeaway for me is that, we have to pay attention to those gut feelings.
Absolutely.
It's like our second brain trying to talk to us.
It is. It's giving us information about what's going on.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive.
My pleasure. And for those of you listening,
Yeah.
next time you get that gut feeling, really pay attention to it. What is it trying to tell you?
It might be more important than you think.
It might be.
Amazing. Thanks again.
You're welcome.